So this follower, let's call them G, visited Waverly Hills Sanatorium way back in 2021. They and their mom actually went for their mom's birthday because their mom really likes spooky stuff. G noted that on the 4th floor there was a strange noise, like a loud bang that happened that scared the entire group. And at this point when that sound happened, G whipped out the old phone and started snapping pictures. First picture is literally normal. And like I said, it was rapid fire picture taking. So they should all look the same. Well, tell me why after the first one things just go downhill. They also noticed later on that if you look closely, there seems to be the face of a woman in the window. I'm going to show you guys and you're going to tell me what you think and what you see. So Mitchell lives in Scotland and it gets dark pretty late there, so their family cat is allowed to wander pretty late at night. Well, it's around 11 p.m. on this night and Mitchell sets out to go find the cat and bring it back inside. It was already completely dark, so they're trying to pick up the pace a little bit, and they finally see the cat at a neighbor's van. So they're walking up to the cat and they're like calling for it. Well, then they hear a scream unlike anything they've ever heard. They said they are shocked it didn't rupture their eardrum. It was so loud. So, of course, this startles the cat, and the cat takes off running. As they're hearing this scream bounce off of every tree surrounding them, because they are surrounded by trees in this neighborhood, they decide, well, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to be any help to this cat. If I'm gone, I need to get to safety. So they run back to their house and tell their parents that something happened. But as they're running, they look back at this van and see something they'll never forget. It's thin and tall, and it's on all fours. It's fleshy colored. It's not right. It was very tall. Whenever it was on all fours, it was as tall as the van. Their parents heard nothing, didn't believe them, and the dad went out and brought the cat safely back inside and did not hear or see or experience anything. So at around 10 years old, this follower, let's call them Iris, goes on a camping trip with their family in the northern part of New Hampshire, those mountains. So everything's fine until they wake up in the middle of the night needing to go to the bathroom. Now their dad was like, hey, if you need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, please wake me up and let me know. But they didn't want to bother their dad, so they get up and walk out by themselves. So that's when things started to get weird. They heard something or someone say hello pretty close to them, but upon looking around, there was no one. So they do their business rather quickly and then hurry back to the tent, because if that is a person, they want no part of that person. So they get back safely to their tent, and that is when the whistling starts. The whistling goes on for so long, and it is so loud that it wakes up Iris's dad. Now let's fast forward 5 years later, and they are camping again in the exact same area, and this time more relatives are there. So everything's fine for the first 2 days, and even at night, and Iris wasn't even worried about the noises anymore, but something changed that night. Same situation, same setting as last time, gotta pee, didn't want to bother dad, goes by themselves. So once they get inside of the bathroom, they see this shadow figure just standing there staring at them from behind a stall. They said they remember putting their phone in their pocket and hurrying out and quickly walking back to the tent. But as they're walking, they hear something call from the bathroom, hey, your phone. They said they didn't even care about their phone at that point. They just went back to their tent, and the next morning they did go back to the bathroom and they saw their phone laying on the toilet paper holder in the stall that they did not go in, where that shadow figure was standing. They started off this email saying, could these mountains be a part of the Appalachian Mountains? And they are. Did you just want to hold her? Yeah. You see, it's not just me catching weird Appalachian sounds on camera. What was that? What was that, and why did it kind of sound like Bigfoot? Like, I've never heard Bigfoot, but if I had, I feel like it would sound like that. I got this sent in to me, like, right after I posted the footage that I found. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. this story is centered around 3 different families who decided to take a trip from Florida up into Black Mountain in North Carolina. But hold on, because it's not even that you're thinking. This was a full-blown poltergeist haunting in an Airbnb. So let's get into this wild story. And before you guys ask, I did email them back and I was like, show me this listing right now because I need to stay there and I need to film my stay. So they went back to try and find the listing. The house has been put up for sale on the market, and I don't know if it's exactly legal for me to show it. So I'm not going to, but it is for sale. It is $500,000. I can't afford it. I'm so sorry, guys. So Audrey and her family, along with 2 other families, decide to rent this property for vacation in the Black Mountain area of North Carolina. And it is a huge, beautiful house, a decently big property too. So they get there at around 11 p.m. and immediately when they step up on this front porch, they notice that something feels gross. Something is off. So Audrey and a few of the cousins decide to sleep up in the attic, and they're up there just talking about how something just feels inherently yucky about this house. So they go down to the rest of the family, and everyone's like, yeah, I feel it too. So they're like, okay, we need to go stay in a hotel. So they call up the person they're renting it from, and they're like, can we get our money back because we need to go stay in a hotel? And they're like, no. So that's where that conversation ends. So then things get worse. They visit Black Mountain in the winter. There's a huge cold front and it's freezing. There is no heat working in that rental. But despite this, for some reason, Audrey would wake up these first few nights drenched in sweat, like an unnatural amount of sweat. For a house with no heat, Audrey was sweating. And this was only happening to Audrey, or so we thought. Their best friend's dad said that he felt an unnatural heat that was so bad he was forced to get up and open up a window. But when he got up to open the window, he heard his bed shaking so violently. He was like, there must be an animal underneath this bed. So he checked and there was nothing. So he turns to go to the bathroom because he's like, I need to splash some water on my face. I need to just get out of this room. And the armoire has now moved completely out in front of his walkway. It's heavy. He goes to try and move it back. He can't move it by himself. So he turned to wake up his wife because someone else needs to bear witness to what's happening. He hears a noise, he looks back, and it has moved back on its own. Today I'm going to read you guys some stories, and warning, some of these are actually horrific, and I don't think you should watch this at night for that reason, especially the first one. The Boy in the Chicken Coop, my mother's story. When my mom was a young girl, she lived with my grandparents deep in the woods near the top of the mountain. The chicken coop was a ways away from the house since my grandmother was very terrified of chickens. My mom went out one night to check for eggs, and she saw what she thought was a young boy standing near the coop. But when she got close, she saw that he was completely made of shadows. After a moment, he turned around, and she could see the loose shape of an open mouth as it let out an inhuman shriek. Years later, she learned that there was at one point a young boy who lost his life by a fire in a shack in that area. Next story. The Drowned Man, my story. When I was a young girl, around age 9, I used to go walking in the woods around my home. I grew up in a trailer in the middle of the woods, not too far from where my mom grew up, just at the bottom of that mountain in a valley. One time I came across a strange man with really long hair who was entirely nude. He was sopping wet, with threads above his lips like they'd been stitched shut and cut open again. I know this seems extremely strange, but it's a core memory for me. I remember being completely unafraid, which was unusual. I was very anxious around other people at this age. He asked me to sit with him on a log, and we talked about life and my life and the mistreatment that I was going through in particular. I don't remember much of the details, but I do remember at some point telling him that my life felt like some kind of cosmic joke. And he told me that if my life was a joke, I needed to laugh along with it if I wanted to survive it. After that, we went our separate ways, him deeper into the woods and me back to the trailer. Next story. The Golden Lady and the Man of the House, my story. This one also takes place in that trailer and happened to both my mother and I. The trailer was inhabited by the spirit of an older man who we would both see semi-translucent walking down the hall from time to time. He would call my mother's name, touch her lightly, and occasionally put a single towel in the dryer and start it. The man hated it whenever my mother had a man in the house. My parents divorced when I was 3, so I can't say if my dad ever experienced any negative effects. But at one point, a cast iron wall fixture flew off the wall and nearly hit my former stepdad. That actually happened twice, once to my former stepfather, and one to one of my mother's female friends. Interestingly, my very sweet, loves everyone dog hated both of those people. They were the only people my dog ever growled at in her life. Another one of the spirits we saw in that house we only saw looking at the house from outside. We'd usually see her through the kitchen window. She was a beautiful woman who seemed to glow with golden light. At first I thought it was my mom and a trick of the light. My mom always had light red in her hair. But I saw this golden lady even when my mom wasn't home, and my mom had seen her too. The reason I put them in one story is that we actually have a strong superstition who the man was. Before our trailer was there was a house, and a man's wife, him, there for cheating. We aren't sure if the Golden Woman is related to his wife, but we have no leads on who she was or what she is. Next story. The All-Knowing Shadows. Mine and my brother's story. When I was a kid, still in the same trailer, there were 3 shadowy figures, loose in form, not like the boy my mother saw, which looked like red embers for eyes and would talk to me from the end of my bed. I can't remember what was said, but I remember that they'd answer absolutely any question I asked. Eventually I refused to speak to them and they disappeared. But my brother is 9 years younger than me, and eventually he began to start going into his closet and asking no one strange questions. His closet and my closet were right next to each other, separated only by a thin wall. I suspected he was talking to the same entities, and on a day when I was home and he was not, I went into his closet and demanded that they leave him in our house alone. I never saw my brother talking to his closet again. Next story. The Shadow Nanny. My mother and I story. This may or may not be related to the previous story, but my mother reports that when I was a baby, when she and my father and brother and me were home for the first time, not the trailer, we spent the first 6 months of my life living in a shack that had been advertised as a chicken coop. She would sometimes see a shadow looming over me at night. Now, my mother had terrible postpartum depression that went untreated, so take this with 1 grain of salt. It's possible she may have just been hallucinating, but given the previous story about loose-form shadow creatures, it felt worth noting. Next story. Tourists and the Woods Folk. My whole household story. This one isn't supernatural, but it's horrifying. Growing up in the trailer in the woods, we often had to deal with tourists coming from the city who would come to our woods to hunt. And by hunt, I mean drink and shoot and ride 4-wheelers in locals' lawns. Our trailer was shot at on numerous occasions, one of which I remember a bullet actually going through the house. Older men would do donuts in our yard at 6 o'clock in the morning, and once when I was 12, I came out with a pew to let them know to get out of our yard. Coupled this with the fact that our back door eventually fell off of its hinges and my mother fixed it by stapling over the doorway with plastic and a blanket, it was a horrifying experience. Oh my god. I don't know if this person has a TikTok, but they do have an Instagram, and I'm going to put all of their stuff below, and I'll put it here too. Those are terrifying. Don't watch this video unless you want to have an intense fear of dolls and stuffed animals after it. I warned you. I've always had a lot of stories. My mother and I have both been sensitive to the spirit realm for as long as I can remember. While I'd be happy to share more of them with you, there's one in particular that I've only ever spoken of with my husband and mother. It's the one that still keeps me awake at night. When I was around 9 years old, I was like any other girl. My room overflowed with dolls and stuffed animals. I would spend hours hosting tea parties and talking to them, pretending we all were alive together. But one evening, everything changed. Something happened that made me give up dolls forever. To this day, I can't stand them. Whenever my own children bring dolls or stuffed animals into the house, I feel my skin crawl. It started innocently enough. One night, while playing alone in my room, I spoke to my dolls. I said, half joking, "If any one of you are alive, show me, then we can really play together." I turn around and freeze. One of my stuffed animals, a bunny doll named Penelope, was standing straight up, mid-fall, hanging in the air as if some invisible hand was holding it. I couldn't move. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear. Without thinking, I shoved all of my dolls back onto their shelves and ran to find my mom. I didn't say a word about what I'd seen. I was too scared. That night, I tried to push it out of my mind. My mother and I shared a bedroom, and as always, I left the bathroom light on to chase away the darkness. The light cast shadows across the room, especially on my bed. The glow made eerie shapes, long stretched shadows under the bed, that bright patches of light on the walls. I lay awake, staring at the wall, trying to calm down. I wanted to roll over and face the bathroom, but something deep in my gut whispered, "Don't move." So I stayed still. Minutes pass. Then out of the corner of my eye, I see something move. There, in the thin strip of light between the bed and the floor, something was walking. It wasn't Penelope. It was another doll. One even worse. You might know the type if I describe it. It had a hard plastic head, arms, and legs, but a soft, plushy white body stuffed with cotton. The face was painted on, simple, lifeless, and horribly blank. It looked like a bald baby, frozen in a permanent stare. And now that tiny silhouettes were walking, step by step, across the floor in front of the bathroom. I stopped breathing. I squeezed my eyes shut and pulled the covers over my head, too scared to scream, too scared to move. I don't know what would have happened if I'd stayed looking. All I know is that something answered me that night. Stay safe and best wishes, Meredith. This was not the story to read since my dolls were acting up recently. This was not the story for me to read. Recently, one of my friends shared a story with me, and it is pretty creepy, so if you were watching this at night, I recommend saving it for the daytime, because it really freaked me out at night.
So this happened probably 15 years ago, and it took place over the span of a few days. I'd gotten to my girlfriend's house super late, like at 1 in the morning, and I'd just gotten back from a bachelor party. I was completely sober. She was living at an apartment in her parents' house, and her parents had an L-shaped house. There was a granite light post in the front of it that illuminated their house. I'd gotten out of my car, and I was so tired. I turned towards the house to start walking towards it, and I see a shadow of a person on the house, like someone had walked between this granite light post, so I saw the shadow walk essentially to the front door. I was so freaked out. The apartment was in the basement, so I go downstairs, and she's still awake waiting for me. I tell her what happened, and she immediately assumed that I was seeing things because of how late it was. I was too freaked out to stay in her house, so I went back to my own. A couple days later, she finally convinces me to stay the night at the house with her. I had agreed, and we went to bed pretty early. Her bed was pushed up against the wall, and I always slept on the outside. I wake up at around 2 in the morning, and two things happen at the same time. Where my feet are, I feel the bed sink, like she was crawling over me to get to her side, but it stayed sunken in like she was sitting there. And then I start to smell cigarette smoke. I don't smoke, but she did occasionally. She never would have smoked in the house, though. It's also important to tell you that I was sleeping on my side, my back to her. So I get annoyed, with my feet dipping into some hole in the bed, and I say, "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. I say it louder and move my feet, and then I feel her touch my back. She asks me what's wrong. I get so freaked out my eyes open wide, and there I see a floating burning ember of a cigarette about a foot from my face. I turn over to see her next to me. The ember's gone, the smell's gone, and the mattress indent where I felt it near my feet flattened back out like something moved. I talked to her mom the next day, and her mom said that there was a known ghost in that house, but no one had ever had an experience like that, and her mom was freaked out. I'm a total believer, I always have been, but whatever this was felt so unsafe. I automatically turned to prayer to make it stay away, and it never came back. I don't know why me. I've always had experiences. Just like a little funny side note. So he told me this story. Hold on. It was in the trenches of nighttime. I don't know what time it was. It was really late, right? And I had forgotten that my husband and I had went to the Hard Rock Casino earlier. And anytime we go there, we just end up smelling like smoke because everyone's smoking in there. And we came back home, and I guess it was like on his jacket specifically, but I had just read this story, and he walked by me, and I smelled cigarette smoke, and I was like, oh my god, it's in the house. It's in the house. I got so scared, and as soon as I, turned to tell my husband, something is wrong, I was like, oh my god, the casino. Duh.